بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له. وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This is Gabriel Al Romaani, and welcome again here on Peace TV to the premiere, inshallah, of this course, Defense Against Disaster. Teaches you how to respond to common attacks from missionaries, from people who are trying to corrupt and deceive and lie and take things out of context, out of proportion when it comes to Islam, and trying to confuse the masses, be it Muslims or non-Muslims, so that they do not commit to Islam, so they have doubts, so they leave Islam. And we said that we started this quite some time ago, and it's an endeavor that's running under icraa.org, and we provide articles that go in depth. So what I'm teaching you right now, what I'm telling you right now, it's quite basic still. Even though it might seem a little bit advanced, it might seem like it's the first time you've heard it. Alhamdulillah, if you go to our website, you'll find a lot of articles that go in detail, and we do advise you to go back to this. In the previous episode, we talked about the preservation of the Quran. And you see, if the missionaries and those who want to attack Islam, the critics, if they attack the Quran and they successfully confuse people, right? This is the book of Allah. If people are confused, their iman, their faith is in danger. So we want people to be protected from that. We said that the Quran, the simple way, the proof is there, brothers. You don't have to get into a debate or go into history, even though the information is there. But the reality is that the Quran was always memorized. Until today, the proof is there that it's memorized. So it's not something that you need to, like in Christianity, to draw a parallel to prove that the scriptures were found in the year so-and-so and it was part of the canon, and none of that. Even though we have our proof and we can go and debate. But you see, in the reality, people always debate the historicity of things, how events took place. You always have some opinion, some opposition, and so on. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as He told us, إِنَّا نَحْنُ نَزَّلْنَا الذِّكْرَ وَإِنَّ لَهُ لَحَافِظُونَ. And indeed, we have revealed this dhikr, this Quran, and indeed, it is upon us to guard it. Allah took it upon Himself to guard it. You know, is this a statement only? No, the Quran is a living miracle that today you find that it's guarded. Who guards it? Hifth, hafiz. A hafiz is called a guardian, a person who keeps it, who memorizes it. Go to any masjid. I challenge you. I'm almost positive that there's a 99% chance that you'll find a hafiz in each community in this world. I'm talking about every city. And if you don't, if that 1% comes in play, you will at least find amongst all the people that they know, if you put them all together, all of them somehow knows at least this many chapters, they all come and they have the Quran with them. This is in memory. Of course, they have the book. And as we said, the Quran was also in parallel preserved through writing at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, so that people don't get confused. While the Prophet ﷺ is there, Zayd ibn Thabit heard it from the Prophet ﷺ. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud heard it from the Prophet ﷺ. The Sahaba, Ali radiallahu anh, heard it from the Prophet ﷺ, learned it from their mouth. We have many hadith and many narrations who talk about that he learned from the mouth of the Prophet ﷺ, this many surahs and this many surahs. And not just that, they all witnessed it. They prayed behind it. The hadith where the Prophet ﷺ was praying and one of the Sahaba came and prayed next to him, the night prayer. They knew which surah it is because they named the surah. They knew what he's reciting because he's saying, he went to this surah, he finished the surah, and then he went to the next surah. So this person knows, he recognized. They knew it, they recited it. Ahlul Sufa, the people who were not so rich, mashallah, they came to the masjid, their sustenance was, mashallah, provided, and they were dedicated to reading the Quran, to memorizing, to learning, mashallah, and students of knowledge. See, the proof is very clear. You don't need to get into confusion about this. And as we said, the compilation, when it came to writing, Uthman to gather the Quran so he can send it with the different reciters, it was open in the public. People came, and then he requested people to bring their copies and bring their whatever they've written on. Smart, genius. Why? Because he doesn't want what happened to the previous scriptures. For example, we found this parchment of the Bible in this area, and it contradicts the other one, and it contradicts the other one, and so on. See, Uthman was very careful, because when people come by later on, they'll have an argument or something against. No, there's, bring it all. You guys wrote it by your own hands. Want to make sure there's no mistakes. Want to make sure that there's nothing that some of the Sahaba, you would add their own notes, some tafsir. So he requested them to bring it. And what did he do? He burned them. That's right. And we said that's how you get rid of parts of the Quran. If a page falls off, or it's not properly, it's broken or ripped, or a Quran, sometimes pages are missing, incomplete. You don't keep it. You don't want anyone to. So you basically burn it. If I have writing, when I prepare my khutbah, and there's ayat of the Quran that I put on the paper, and I don't want the paper anymore, I have to burn it. So Uthman radiallahu anh burned. See, why do they shock you though? Because they say, you see, you guys talk about us. Because in the councils where they decided, the Christian council, when they decided what the canon is of the Bible, what's Bible, what's not, here's human beings deciding without any prophet, without any companions of Jesus. They are the ones, sadly, actually, they don't even speak the language of Jesus, but they decide to say that this is canon, and this is not. Everything else is not. And they would burn, and that is why we say it's not the same in Islam. They're burning to hide, to get rid of differences. We're not talking about here pages and so, we're talking about differences. We're talking here about theological differences. Even if anyone is to so-called make reference to the Yemen parchments that were found in the Quran, say, compare them and you will not find any differences in Aqidah, in the methodology, in the message of Islam. If it's missing one letter or something, or this is a part. That's the silly argument of these so-called educated people, is to make people doubt. We found some parts of the Quran and they are missing some chapters. So look, this is what the people believe. No, it's very clear that's not the case because we memorize it from A to Z, from the first chapter to the last chapter. It's always been memorized. It was memorized 500 years ago. It was memorized 800 years ago. It was memorized 1,000 years ago. And it was memorized at the time of the Prophet ﷺ. And it's memorized today. And it will be memorized tomorrow. And it will be memorized 10 years from now. And 100 years from now. Until Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decides to remove it and decides for their judgment to take place. So you have no leg to stand upon. Really, when these arguments come from so-called intellectuals, you realize the real intention behind this. They want to confuse people. They want you what? They found something. It's not the same. Did you even check it? That's going back to my previous argument, previous episode. Do you have the ability and the tools to check it? No, but you see the doubts come. But do you have the ability and the tools to check the Quran, what's in front of you? Yes. Go to a masjid. Go see the living miracle of the Quran, how it's preserved. See, that's the shocking and the interesting part of this argument, that people, they just get swayed so easily by these so-called shubahat. People just come and say, we found this, and people are like, oh my God. So Uthman radiallahu anh knew this, and sadly, look what happened. Alhamdulillah that no one really believes, no one really has an issue. Very few, if anyone. And they tried very hard to push this, to popularize this. They made documentaries and articles and newspapers and newscasts. In the end of the day, the Quran is still moving on. The Quran is still being recited in the masajid, the same Quran, always. People, young, old, you name it, it's always one. While the Bible, again, you want to draw parallels so you understand. We believe in the Bible. We're not trying to make, some kind of looking down, but we want the people to understand the truth. That this Bible, this message that came from Isa alayhi salam, had the message of Islam, but it's been changed. And it's clear and evident. That's what we say. Go back. We don't tell you come and read the Quran so you know that the Bible is corrupted. Okay? Allah says in the Quran, يُحَرِّفُونَ كَلَامَ اللَّهِ, that they make the tahrif. We're telling you, go back to your book and see it. Go back to your actual book. I'm not telling you, come to my book to prove you, or to prove my point. I'm telling you, go read your book. Go back to that. You see? Because you want to compare. You want people to understand. Because they're trying to compare. They're trying to draw comparison. See, yeah, we burned it, but you burned it also. No, brother, I'm sorry. It's not the same. Oh, you're trying to hide something. No, you were trying to hide something. And the evidence is clear. Go take our book, analyze it, and go analyze your book. See? So Uthman radiallahu anh was not hiding anything. There was no issues of theology, differences, or anything like that. It was simply so people don't get confused, ever, to close any doors. So he burnt it. Alhamdulillah. But before that, one issue that needs to be addressed, because again, the missionaries try to bring it up, is that some of the Sahaba did not want to give up their copies to be burned. And the question will be, why? And you'll find the answer to the question, inshallah, after this break.
A servant is not afflicted with any punishment greater than having a stiff heart and being away from the Almighty, the Compassionate. Hearts are God's vessels on the earth. The most beloved ones to Him are the softest and the most purest. If hearts are nourished with God's remembrance and quenched with His meditation, it will witness great wonders and deep wisdom. Since our hearts are enlaced with layers of oblivion, we need to cleanse them to stand sound and pure before Allah. To know more, join us on Peace TV's new series on healing hearts, where we can join together the caravan of the sincere servants of Allah.
Let's try and purify our hearts from all destructive sins to taste true success in Healing Hearts. Every Thursday at 6 p.m. and repeat telecast at 5:30 a.m. India on Peace TV. Peace TV presents over 100 million viewers at one of the largest peace conferences in the world, addressing a sea of spellbound spectators. Over 30 world-renowned orators on Islam with credentials impeccable.
The truth of Islam.
Deen is your way of life.
It is our duty, our obligation.
By following the Quran and Sunnah,
we will give the message to one and all.
With articulation exquisite.
Read the book of Allah.
Islam is the easy way. It's the simple way.
Remind each other.
The Muslim is not a source of harm for other people.
Collaborate with the people for good.
This is the call of Islam.
With the mission of spreading the truth of Islam.
Do what you can to spread the word of Islam.
Wherever we are,
live like Muslims.
Use your power.
Allah is saying, why do you need anything else? This Quran is self-sufficient.
the only book on the face of the globe, the Quran.
How a human being should lead his life is given in this instruction manual, the glorious Quran.
For peace to prevail on earth in Peacemakers. Next on Peace TV.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back. Before the break, we were talking about the proofs that the Quran has been preserved and drawing the parallels of the argument of the missionaries who were trying to say, okay, we had our books being burned in the councils and so on, where theology was decided, where the canon was decided, and so on. Okay, yeah, but you also have done that. Why are you trying to lie? Look, Uthman burned the Qur'ans, right? And the reply that we've given is not the same. Don't mix apples and oranges. Okay, they're not the same. We've explained very clearly that no one really has the tools to go and historically verify. You have to believe second, third source, and so on. So for you to test both, you go back to the Bible and see, has anyone been playing with it and tampering with it? Because you see, the human element of intervention is obvious. I don't believe anyone has any reply to that. And any debate can be entertained on this topic. The element of human intervention is obvious. Because it's human, it's not perfect, it will come into evidence. That is why you find the different variations in the Gospels and in the different Bibles, different versions. Then you look at the Quran, different story. We'll address that in a second as well, in more detail. But when you look and you compare, it's very simple. You have the tools to compare. You have the tools to go. So don't be fooled by the argument. Remember in the previous episodes when we talked about the basic way of responding, the general techniques of responding, that don't let them focus you on a problem and then you ignore everything else. Don't let you focus you on the burning and on the fire. Oh, they've done it, we've done it. Oh my God, what are we trying to hide? I have doubts now. No. You go back to safety and you say, yeah, okay, fine, they burned, okay. I don't know maybe why. I know that they should burn if they find a part of the Quran, that's not the way. But I can test it. I can see it in front of me. I can listen to it. And I can test the other one. And then, without a doubt, if you're objective enough, of course there's not 100% objectivity in anyone, but objective enough and truthfulness, you'll find that the answers are quite clear. So, we also said that when Uthman radiallahu anh requested for the parts of the Quran, the leather, the bones, the skin, all that to be brought in, some Sahabas had some copies of the Quran themselves that they made personally. They loved them and they imagined how hard and how difficult it was in that time, 1400 plus years ago, to write. No printing press, no paper yet. Paper was later brought in from China. So there was a sentimental attachment to these Qurans. And especially when they heard it from the Prophet themselves. So I'll give you one example. Ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anh had his Quran and he did not want to give it. So the missionaries and those people are trying to confuse, they stopped there. They say, you see, he didn't agree to what Uthman said and so on and so forth. Not just that, he was missing in that Quran some of the surahs as is related in some of the hadith. Because suppose he believed that Surah Nas and Surah Falaq are du'as, they're not actually surahs. And this is the argument of the missionaries. They say, you see, look, he didn't want to give it up, he believed it's different, it's missing a surah, and so on and so forth. Easy reply, easy reply. Number one is that they stopped there, see, and the ahadith and the collection in the same area you find the answer. But you see, they don't want the answer. They believe one hadith and try to use it as a proof, but they will not accept the second one that gives you the more explanation. And as we said, the principle is to always gather all the information on the same topic. A judge, when he makes a rule in any court of law, will he just take one evidence? No, he tries to put all the pieces together to have a holistic view of what happens. So, what happened? Ibn Mas'ud, he submitted his Quran after. At the beginning, he didn't want a sentimental value. He also believed sincerely something, but he was wrong. We don't base everything on Ibn Mas'ud because there's the consensus of all the Sahaba against that. And he rectified his opinion. So why do the people not quote that? Because they don't want to. Because they want to confuse you. They want to confuse you. They're not telling you the whole picture. They're giving you part of the movie. And this is, again, what's called taking things out of context. The story is complete only when it ends. That Ibn Mas'ud submitted his Quran. Yes, the hadith says that he didn't at first initially believe that, but then he submitted. He accepted. Not just that, the Prophet ﷺ recited Surah Nas, Surah Falaq in prayer, and the Sahabas heard it. Even if, let's say, there was a misunderstanding, they heard it. You might say, how come? Couldn't they ask each other? It's not like that. It's not like, you can text message each other. They knew it. They heard it. The Prophet ﷺ recited. So, you see, the way the argument is put, people need to understand. So he submitted his Quran, It was his part of it, and it was burned. And he accepted the consensus, and he knew, and he rectified. He says, yes, this is not, this is not my correct opinion. And not just that, we will find other examples of opinions that certain Sahabas hold, and it was against the consensus of the other Sahaba. But then they rectified their opinion. But you see, the people are trying to highlight one thing and then confuse you on another. So, the Qur'ans were burned, alhamdulillah, the Mus'haf was written, the books were written, they were sent to different parts of the world. With the reciter, people learned the Qur'an. The famous reciters came into be, the schools were started, the Ijaza program, and so on. And they reached, the Qur'an reached us till today, unaltered, unchanged. No one has any whatsoever argument against the compilation and the validity and the strength, the solid way the Quran was preserved and compiled. Another doubt that comes, and I want to explain a bit more, is, as I said, is the so-called ahruf or qiraat of the Quran. And this is something, again, that goes back to the lack of knowledge of the Muslim. Because now this is also related to the compilation of the Quran. Of Uthman, you find the hadith talking about the qiraat, about the ahruf, that the Quran was revealed in 7 ahruf, the 7. Ahruf 7. And a lot of times people don't understand, like, oh, what? They get confused. They say, what is that? We don't understand. Oh my, is there different Qurans? No. See, there is no different thing. The Quran is one and only one. Don't be confused, brothers and sisters, by people who are trying to confuse you. They have different versions, so then they want to make you believe that you have different versions. They have corruption and evident, just blatant corruption, and then they want to say, you also have. Simple, simple. Let's just, before we even explain, what this means, it's simple. You take the Qur'ans and you compare. Anything? Any difference? Any changes? No. Anything that will affect the message of Islam, even those missionaries, those critics, the Orientalists who have talked about it, they said, in the end of the day, nothing, not message, not theology, not nothing is affected when you're talking about the ahruf. Okay, let's go back and compare to the differences of those who are attacking us. Let's turn the table. Talk about the gospel, just within the same Bible, the gospel of Matthew versus the gospel of John. The letters of Paul versus the synoptic gospels. The New Testament versus the Old Testament. You see, the New International Standard Bible versus King James. New Revised versus the Children's Bible. It's easy to throw an attack there, but it's hard sometimes to understand and reply. And subhanAllah, 95% of the time, when these attacks are hurled and thrown out there, the people get confused because the way the attack is put together, the way the attack is organized, the way the allegation, the way the issue, the criticism is raised. And they can't even get back to understand the information and to research it because they're stuck. They're stuck on the argument, on the way the argument was formulated. And they're very careful how they tailor the argument, how the question is. I heard that you guys have 7 different Qur'ans. Here's the hadith to prove it. And the person's like, oh my God, I never heard about this before. So they get shocked, number one. Novelty effect. Anxiety kicks in. The pupils dilate. Heart rate increases. And they get confused. And they can't say, well, I don't know. First thing you say, okay, that's cool. But I know the Quran, how it's been. Okay, let me ask. Let me compare. Okay, bring me 2. Bring me this and this. Let me compare. And you compare, and you can go page by page, one by one, and by one by one. And then you see is, oh, there's a change in the letter. One says wow, and one says fa. There's no change. So we advise you to go to our website, icraa.org, to get a proper understanding, an in-depth understanding what the ahruf mean. As we said, right, that these are not changes, these are not different books, these are not different Qur'ans, so the people don't get confused. They don't get caught into the argument of the Orientalists or the missionaries who are trying to, again, draw the parallel. Okay, and we do want you to go back to Iqra.org, ICRAA.org, to read the extensive article as to what happens. I hear it's very important that I recommend to you a book by Mufti Taqi Uthmani, and it's called Science of the Quran, and it's in our download section on ICRAA.org. This will give you an in-depth explanation. What I'm giving here is just touching the surface. There's other explanations that have been given by different scholars. There's difference of opinion as to what it means and so on. But the most important is that you understand that there's no change, no corruption. What you need to understand is that the ahruf, according to the correct opinion, is that there are changes or things like laws and things that can be understood, what's halal, what's haram. And there are 7 different ways that the Quran can be read. Let's just say it to make it simple. Okay, 7 different injunctions that the Quran can be read based on. And those ahruf are preserved within the Qiraat. Anyway, we're going to take some time off. We're going to continue on our next episode. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.